Well, Cuphead and his pal Mugman, they like to roll the dice. By chance they came upon a devil's game, and gosh, they paid the price. Paid the price. And now they're fighting for their lives on a mission fraught with dread. And if they proceed but don't succeed, well, the devil will take their heads.
Hi, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations about Culture, your seriously pointless podcast about all your nerdy and geek things across time and Inkwell Island. My name is David. I am joined today again by James. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah?
I just finished a week of nights at work, and it was bad.
That's why I've given you the opportunity to do this podcast from home, and you're all cuddled up with your little blanket, and you're like, "Oh, this is so
Right.
much comfy."
I'm very comfortable.
You have your grandma, your elderly white girl, drink for you to keep you liquidated or not liquidated.
I prefer the phrase "premium alcohol seltzer."
Yeah, that's. I haven't been partaking too much of the alcohol, but I did get a really nice bottle of Whistle Pig rye whiskey, which you've had that before.
Whistle Pig is good stuff.
I've been having a couple fingers at a night. It's not the last.
Did you get what, the 6-year, the 10-year? Which one?
I got the 6-year. I wanted to get the 10, but I couldn't bring myself to pay $180 for a bottle of booze. Or however much it is.
It should be more like 90, but yeah.
It was quite a bit more. Like the Whistle Pig.
180 will buy you the Boss Hog, though, which is really, really good.
It's tasty. Yeah. I remember they let us try it was like a thimble full of it. And I'm like, this is the smoothest thing I've ever had in my life.
Is it $180 good? I'm not sure. But is it delicious? Absolutely.
It is very tasty. Yes. And so if you guys out there in podcast land like whiskey, I'd highly recommend the Whistle Pig rye, because it only ran us it's like a 40 bottle of whiskey, maybe.
Yeah, the $6 whistle, the 6-year Whistle Pig is very respectable.
6-year
I did get my father a bottle of the 10 for Father's Day, and I've got to say it is another notch up. It's really nice.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how's your guys' limoncello coming along? Is it going good?
It's coming along. We have finished the first step, and we have produced about 1.5 gallons of product.
Yeah.
And the next step is to buy a bunch of lemons.
That's
whole lot of
awesome.
lemons.
That's what I love about living in Missouri, man, is you can make whatever you want. Like, what is it? Something ridiculous amount of alcohol that you can.
If I recall, in the state of Missouri, it is legal to make 200 gallons of beer or wine or liquor
for personal use.
Per personal use per household. As long as you don't try to sell it, you're good to go.
God bless America.
God bless America.
And Missouri. That's
one of the first states in the country to make it legal again, too.
Damn right. That's fun fact, guys. If you didn't know that about Missouri, we were actually one of the biggest before Prohibition. We had some of the biggest. We were one of the biggest exporters of wine and spirits in the United States before California.
Oh yeah, you can read articles from the turn of the century. Europe was talking about how good Missouri wine was, and the climate has changed a little bit since then. But actually, the heating up of the area and the, generally speaking, drier summers we've had here these last 10 years or so is actually doing good things for Missouri wine.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, and the winemakers are getting more experience. So I think we'll see Missouri wine back on the map in the next couple decades.
In the next decade or so, yeah. Between that and the craft beer scene, man, it's I that's the one thing I love about Missouri is you may not be able to you may have some questions about gun control laws and things like that, but I can always put my thumb on the pulse of Missouri is the booze scene. That's definitely for sure. So that's what I love
Vaccination
about. But
status poor, beer quality high.
that's right. Always a step above the rest. That's what's important. You got to keep your people happy, James. But anyways, talking about things that make us happy and sad at the same time, much like living in misery,
Mhm.
is the game we're going to be talking about today, which happens to be Cuphead.
Mhm.
Now, Cuphead is a 2017 run and gun video game developed and published by Studio MDHR. The game was inspired by the rubber hose style of animation used in cartoons from the golden age of American animation, such as the work of Walt Disney Studio Animation Studios and the Fleischer Studios, which are most notably known for like the early Superman animated cartoons. Which, if you guys ever get a chance to look at those are some top notch animations, although be possibly just slightly racist in there.
Well, such as much of the stuff at the time.
The 1930s and 20s. So
Have you ever gotten the chance to get like a vintage, like World War II era Bugs Bunny cartoon collection or something?
it's a little
Ooh.
yeah, it's something my grandparents were probably like, this is fine, and I'm just like, I feel dirty watching this, not in a good way.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's
pretty bad.
yeah. So, but they like to take those elements from they take some of those elements from those cartoons, and these the two brothers that basically set up the studio, they took their love of animation and video games, and they made Cuphead. So, what was your first experience with Cuphead, James?
I played it a few years back. I
Mhm.
got it for, I think, this Nintendo Switch. Whenever it first came to Switch is whenever I purchased it. I know it had been on PC for years before that. Now, I gotta say, first impression is it is a gorgeous game. Like they took the old style cartoony graphics of it and the way they've drawn it and animated it, like the sound effects, like right down to the grainy scratches on the simulated projection camera. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
It is gorgeous and it is unforgiving. That
And
is
beneath that silken exterior lies a hard iron core.
it's much like Margaret Thatcher, although it appears to be, a genial woman. She is the Iron Maiden. It is tough to say the least.
Hmm.
I kind of had the same experience as you did, man. I got turned on to this. I was actually found out about this game. I was watching a guy called the what is he called? It's the Mexican something, and he's legitimately from Mexico, but he is
Oh, the guy he's like one of the top speed runners
yeah.
for the game. Yeah,
I saw him one
he
time
was on
playing
GD. He
this,
was on GDQ a couple
and
times.
it is fascinating to watch him. I cannot remember how fast he actually used to hold a couple of world records for this game, and I was watching him play it, and I'm like, this game is fascinating. And I'm like, look at him watching him play it. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. Not thinking this is when I'm just first getting into that, speedrunner scene. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem so bad. And not knowing that he'd spent hours upon hours playing this game already.
He's actually just named the Mexican runner. That's just
The
his
Mexican
name.
runner. Okay, that's what I had to
Yeah.
make sure. I wasn't for sure what his name, what his tag was. But if you guys like watching speedrunners, he's definitely one to watch for this game in particular. But kind of a brief synopsis of the game. Would you want to
Sure.
do a
So,
kind of what the game is all about, James?
yeah, it begins with you and your brother, whose name is Mugman.
That's right.
They have oh, I can't remember what exactly you do to dig things first. Do you go like and gamble or something?
So
I
yeah,
know you end up in debt to the devil.
yeah. So you go off. You are two fun loving cups, and you kind of go to the devil's casino, and you
Yeah, that's right.
start playing craps.
That's right. You gamble, you lose, and you lose your soul to the devil.
Yep.
And the devil says that if you want to keep your soul, you need to help him get back the souls of all these people who have reneged on their contracts. And they said if you go and you pretty much kill everyone else in the world who's a gambling addict, then the devil will let you off. And so you go back to your grandpa, and your grandpa's like, "Oh, Sonny, you're in a pickle now. Here, drink this magic tea so you can shoot bullets out of your heads." And that's the game.
Yep, that's the plot is not that, in depth. There's not a whole lot of character backstory other than you're trying to save your souls, and it's nice because it kind of has, much like some of the cartoons of that era. It doesn't have a real deep plot to it, does it?
It doesn't need it. I mean, and this is kind of the run and gun equivalent of Dark Souls in the
Oh,
sense that
absolutely.
this is a game which was set out to be deliberately designed to be punishingly difficult.
Absolutely. And it definitely does not hold any punches back at all. So that kind of like moves us on to the gameplay a little bit. So what about the gameplay do you remember vividly about it?
So you have like this, like you said, there's a mixture of run and gun style levels where you can collect coins
Mm-hmm.
and boss fights. The
Yes.
vast majority of the game is boss fights. Generally speaking, I would say like 5 or 6 out of every 7 are boss fights.
Mm-hmm.
You can defeat the bosses. There's a normal mode generally, and there's an expert mode that you can fight them a second time on a harder difficulty.
And then there's an easy mode too, I believe.
Well,
Is there we don't talk about
no one's going to admit to using the easy mode in a game like this.
I might have tried a couple times and still failed, but because there's a couple of those bosses are just infuriating, and I was like, I just want to get past this level. I just want to get past this level.
But you've got different weapons you can get. I think you start out with like a shooting one and like a shotgunny type one.
Yeah, you shoot with your finger. Yeah,
and you can get like a lobbing shot. I think there's like an orbiting shot. I mean, there's 3 or 4 different shots you can get.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Every shot has like its own special ability. So, for example, like the finger shot lets you shoot like a big shot, and so for every so many shots you get, it charges up your special ability, and you can shoot more shots. There's also a mechanic where anything that is bright pink on the screen, you can like do a dodge parry off of.
And so that kind of that moves us into the you have a super meter, basically a super move meter, that once it fills up, you can either do one of a couple of things. You can do small, like slight, like kind of super moves, like, and you can have up to 5 of those, or you can wait till the gauge fills up all the way and you can do one giant super move, and which will deal significantly more damage. Obviously, if you let it gauge up a little bit, but yeah, that's usually kind of what we try to go for if you're able to dodge all the various things that are flying across the screen at you while you're trying to kill the bad guys or at least get through the level. But yeah, and it definitely, that's like you were saying, is the bosses are really what make it stand out, I think. I mean, you do have those running gun levels, but I think the boss fights are truly what make it stand out quite a bit, because I mean, let's name off
that's the type of game it is, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a few of the first few bosses are pretty iconic. There was the garden patch people,
the flower, the big, it's like
there was the big flower. That's
yeah,
the first one a lot of people fight, is the big flower. There's the
that's
slime blob.
one.
There's the two frogs,
the tombstone, or the blueberry. Is it the blueberry or the tombstone? I can't remember. The blueberries.
Yeah,
it's the blueberry
remember.
Because he died. You kill the blueberry and he comes back as a tombstone and he tries to squish you.
That's right. That's the big, like, he's like a slime thing.
Yeah. And then you have, like you said, the 2 frogs, and then later on you have some on the second island. You have other guys like, what was it, the clown on the roller coaster, and
that stupid mummy guy.
God, screw that mummy! I don't know how many times we died on that thing.
I hate the freaking mummy.
Oh my god, he was so awful. And then you have the
queen
dragon.
the queen sweets.
Oh yeah,
there's the dragon.
Kind of annoying, yeah. But there's so many more. I think I only got to like the second island, which is that one, I believe. Second or third island, is that one?
There's 3 islands in total, and yeah, I only got to the halfway through the second island because I had just finished playing Dark Souls 2, and I was not really ready for another game of that difficulty.
Have your soul beaten out of you and just like downtrodden again. That's kind of what it feels like. But yeah, that's kind of one of the nice things about this game, though, is it does have a level of difficulty. And that's what they've really kind of pushed in the last few years between the Dark Souls things and especially this game. And that's what a lot of the creators of these games, the 2 brothers, I'm just like totally forgetting their names off the top of my head, and I cannot remember what their names are. But sorry, Chad Moldenhauer and Jared Moldenhauer. That's who Chad and Jared are their names. And they were talking to themselves, they want to have a game that's challenging to the point where it's you just have to you start to be you have to get to the point where it's becomes skill based and it's not just pure luck or memorization. They said because if you get into games like Battletoads, which I don't know if you ever played that,
Hmm.
or even some of the other older NES or SNES games, it basically came out almost to memorization, right?
Well, because I mean, some of those games were challenging because they were just bad mechanically.
Yeah,
You remember them as hard because that's all there was at the time, but when you go back and play them again, you were like, "Oh, this isn't hard. This is just poorly designed."
yeah,
And
poorly
that's not the
designed.
case for
Yeah,
Cuphead.
no,
Cuphead plays fluid. It feels fair. It's just really hard.
oh yeah, because I mean, like I
I
was
mean,
saying
a
earlier.
lot of the bosses you do have to play through more than once. Like, whenever they change forms and stuff, yeah,
Mhm.
the new forms are going to be kind of a gotcha moment. But
Well, it changes up their attack styles and how they move around the screen. And once you kind of get used to that, because they do have certain patterns and things that you have to learn a little bit,
hmm
but it is still somewhat random as you play throughout the game, right? Or
hmm
as you progress through the system, because maybe one minute they decide you're thinking to yourself like let's use an example of the flower boss, the one that everyone has gotten to,
hmm
maybe he starts through his first thing. He starts just shooting up. He does the Gatling gun thing where he shoots
hmm
the seeds up into the sky and they slowly fall down. He does it a couple times, but next time maybe he does it like once throughout your
hmm
entire gameplay, and it's just so the game mechanics in it, they do offer enough of a change that you can't rely on it on the boss to do one specific thing every single time.
Yeah, no, you can't
Or
memorize it. The only thing that's
no,
consistent is they do a phase change at the same amount of health.
yep.
And I think the first attack out of each phase change is usually the same, but after that, it's kind of random.
Yeah, it does get a little random after that, but the nice thing about this game though is you don't have to go alone when you play, so
It has couch co-op, which is nice,
it's very nice.
and
And
it actually makes it a little bit easier. I think it does like double the boss's health,
yeah,
so it's not just like a ton easier, but you can kind of save each other from death. So
you can
if
constantly kind of do that if you're close enough. You can do that grab over and over again and
if
like
you're quick
save each
enough,
other.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're quick enough, or if you're not as quick as we were, you die a bunch of times and you just say, "What the hell happened, man?" And then you're
Well, I
just
mean, yeah, it helps a little bit because that way, if there's one boss that one of you is better at than the other, it helps a little bit.
oh yeah, it definitely helps, and but it's definitely a kind of like "Arr," kind of moment every time you lose and come back to it. But like I said, that's part of the fun of the game, right?
hmm
So, but that's truly kind of what you get into a little bit with this game is learning what's the best strategy for taking on the bad guy or the boss or whoever it is and getting through there. So but as you go through the game, you like you were saying earlier, you do get like those power ups and those things, and you go through. You go to what's his name, Pork Rinds Emporium.
Pork Rinds Emporium, which I thought he was great. He has that very Porky the Pig s quality with like the double chins and the like rah, rah, rah,
He's kind of
rah.
mixed in with Bluto a little bit. Kind of
A
that's what I
little
always
bit,
thought of.
yeah.
That's kind of how I always thought of him. But I liked him quite a bit because you can go in and use those coins that you get from the running gun levels to purchase either new items, upgrades, all
New
kinds of stuff
abilities, yeah.
the other abilities that will help you, hopefully progress throughout the game as you move on a little bit.
hmm
um but yeah, that's basically the gameplay of it. We've kind of summarized most of it what it is, but the only other thing I forgot to mention though is once you get to the end, you beat the game or you beat the level, you get a letter rating. And of course everybody tries to get that ever coveted S rating, which
Oh, it's
is
brutal.
so hard, and that's pretty much it. You can't get hit at all.
Like, not only do you not have to take damage, you have to like dodge a certain number of projectiles, and you have to do it in a certain time. It's like the game's giving you style points. It's
At
it's a
that
little
point, yeah,
ridiculous.
I'm just happy a lot of times to get out of there with a C.
I don't care as long as I finish the level. It's like it doesn't even matter.
That's what I loved. But yeah, so let's talk about let's some of the development, some of the love and the care that has gone into this game. So like I said earlier, Cuphead was the initial game from Studio MDHR, which is a Canadian indie game development studio consisting of brothers Chad and Jared Moldenhauer.
hmm
So, and they also
Which have they
have
made anything else?
not yet. As far as I know, they have not. Let me look real quick and see if they have. I do not believe they had. Yeah, they're not. They don't even have a Wikipedia page, so I'm gonna guess that they have not. Unless you find something that
I
I
don't
don't.
see anything. Well, there's something called Cuphead: The Delicious Last Course, which is still in under construction.
That's probably like a extra
It's going
DLC
to be a
thing.
DLC where there's a third character, Mrs. Chalice, who is going to be added to the group, and there's going to be another island worth of content, I guess. So it's just a
That's
Cuphead
not bad.
expansion. Mm-hmm.
Well, at least that'll give them a little. I guess that's them just trying to put a little wiggle room while they try to figure out what their next step is. Because from what I gathered, is these guys put everything that they could into this game, and including mortgaging their house. So, from what I've gathered, so
Yeah, and I always like makes me just. I don't know whether to admire or chastise game developers when they do stuff like that. Because on one hand, if you're a small studio, getting that first game out is a challenge,
absolutely.
and the time and money commitment is extreme, and most of them do end up doing stuff like that. And then just thinking, well, how many of these games actually take off like Cuphead has? I mean, like, oh,
I mean, it's
it's a big risk. It's a very big risk.
yeah, just talking about like that with games, that have actually made it. Like you were saying, you have things like Outer Wilds that you were talking about, Divinity,
Mm-hmm.
Original Sin 2. You have the Friday the 13th game that was kind of a big thing for a little while. You had Psychonauts 2 that came out.
Mm-hmm.
What else was there? The other big one that I really thought about, I was looking at here. The new System Shock that was coming out, Wasteland 3, but obviously your
Mm-hmm.
favorite of all time, Monster Prom, James.
Of course, gotta get the best monster to go to prom.
That's right. James is like, Dracula always says no to me when I ask him to go to prom, wants to go to the Sadie Hawkins. What a tool.
I mean,
I'm
he
going to go
just
stake
has
him
he
later.
has an image to maintain. If he could go with who he wanted to, it would be me.
You're such a jerk. An image to maintain. That's awful, James. That's an awful, awful. But I love that joke though. That was good. That was good. I'm proud of you. Even in your tired state, you're good. You're here to rile me up a little bit. I'm proud. So, but yeah, so even just a handful of these games that go into like Kickstarters and things like that, what is it, like probably one out of every 100 will make it.
Well, yeah, I mean, before we started this, just mentioned the Kickstarter thing. We were looking through the list of like
Yeah.
crowd-funded Kickstarter games on
And
Wikipedia, and there are some distinguished games on that list, but
oh
there's
yeah,
hundreds of games there that no one's ever even heard of,
oh
and
yeah.
that's not even counting the ones that never even like made it out of Kickstarter.
I mean, like Banner
Like
Saga 3, Blasphemous,
well, I mean, Hollow Knight,
Hollow Knight, yeah.
Outer Wilds. I mean, there's a lot of Kickstarter games now.
I mean, there's just so
it's interesting that
many.
it's really brought some fresh blood to the industry, but also there's just so many that flopped.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's insane the amount of games that just people look at, and even though they put money into it, is that they just never. Because that's the thing about they never come to fruition. But that's the thing about these Kickstarters; they're under no obligation to finish the game.
No.
And that's why it terrifies me whenever people are like I was talking to my buddy Alex a while ago, is our buddy Alex,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, he put towards a couple of things, and I was like, man, it's like, you're a better man than I am, Alex, because I just I can't think about trying to do that, because even if it's $5, $6, $7, what happens if it never gets made? God forbid it's something like maybe somebody puts their whole paycheck into this, and they drop like $400 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't imagine that.
Even like experienced developers, like didn't Peter Molyneux like raise like $1 million for Goddess or something back in 2012?
Yeah.
And I think a game did eventually come out, but it's still early access almost 10 years later, and from everything I've heard, it's still pretty trashy.
Into the things like what was the one that I actually bought? It was by a Japanese developer, and he crowdfunded quite a bit of money. I cannot remember what it's called, and I know I have it on Steam somewhere. It's like Sensuo, or I can't remember who it is, but I'll look it up here in a minute. But he raised some ungodly amount of money, and it was ridiculous. Like he was years before he put anything out, and then he had to refund. Oh, he actually think he actually got money from Steam, because Steam was like, well, we'll do this for you, or Sony. I'm sorry, not Steam, Sony. They decided to step in and give him some money for it, and I was just like, what if, like, what is going on? It's just like this. These are some, like, it made no sense to me. It baffled my mind that they were, and I can't find it anywhere.
Of course, if you think about it too, though, I mean, personnel, which is really what it takes to make a good game. I mean, just like how many programmers and graphics designers and stuff could you hire? I mean, if you want a graphics designer,
Well,
a sound guy, I mean, even if you only pay him like $50K a year,
yeah,
I mean, get yourself a few programmers, a studio. By the time you consider a building, computers, and other overhead costs, I mean, you could run up to millions of dollars a year,
millions of
easy,
dollars easily. Yeah.
very easily.
Well, like talking like these guys, these two brothers.
They
One even says,
they worked for themselves for free for
yeah,
years to make this
for free
happen.
years, yeah. And one was actually still working a full time construction gig, while like working like construction work, pouring concrete and stuff, while he was doing this on the side, and had a studio with his brother, and he was just kind of like putting money into this as he could. And I was like, that's that's dedication, but at the same time, it still kind of just boggles my mind that you're able to do this. But yeah, there are many flops out there, guys. So like I said, you can either shoot for that's the one thing about America, you can shoot for the stars, but there's no guarantee that you're going to make it in the big leagues.
So one thing I found interesting about this game, though, was how they worked so hard to copy the animation style from back in the day.
Absolutely.
Like, to the point to where the graphics are actually hand-drawn animations.
Yeah.
The backgrounds are watercolor, just like they used to be in the old cartoons. And then the gameplay runs at 60 frames per second, because that's what looks smooth to our eyes. But the animation is 24 frames a second, which is the old standard for American film. And so when you're watching this stuff, like the way the character jumps around the screen a little bit and jitters, it really makes you feel like you're watching an old school cartoon.
So that's what they do with the cells. They say I was watching a documentary on the making of this, and there's two brothers talking. They actually said that every frame that you look at here has been hand drawn, and all they do is they scan it into the computer, and all they do is the only thing that they do with the computer after they scan it in and is they do the coloring, because they did watercolors on the actual characters and the background, and the backgrounds were watercolored as well beforehand, but they found there was no discernible difference like that people could actually see if you were gonna color in the characters or if you did it on the computer. So they decided to save themselves quite a few years in development and go with the computer route on that end. That's the one thing they decided to do with the development on that, which, to be fair, I'm surprised they didn't do more on the computer than they did. So
yeah, I mean, the fact that that's all they did is pretty impressive, because there's a lot of animation shortcuts you can do on a computer.
Oh yeah,
make
absolutely.
that type of action go a little faster. The other thing was they hired a Romanian animator, developer, and jazz musician for the project.
Yeah,
and they said that Christopher Madigan, I think, was the name of the composer. He composed a different track for every level, so it's 51 different tracks total, and it's all like jazz and big band style stuff. So
I love that. And that's the style.
It's got like a Roaring '20s type feel to it.
Absolutely, man. That's the thing though, is too. He really gets into that. They got into that aesthetic of, we want this to be a 1930s cartoon, and they stuck with it, man. They were like, if we're gonna do this big, we're gonna make it. If we're gonna go with this, we're gonna make it big. We're gonna make it right. Mm-hmm. And luckily, like you said, they got that jazz band to get in there. They got the whole aesthetic in there for the gameplay and the animation, especially, and the bad guys. So, and that's what I love about this. It
just really sells the feel. It's a very highly stylized.
Oh, absolutely. Game. So they kind of talking about that, where they get the kind of this aesthetic from, the Moldenhauers. They actually talk about how they take a lot of the experiences from the youth, which is where everybody gets their stuff at. It's
Mhm.
kind of like us with this show, right? What do we pull from a lot of our childhood? And you
Oh
hear
yeah.
me and James talk about how we used to be sleepholders and sleepovers and play Clay Fighter all the time and drink mountains of Mountain Dew, and how it
Mhm.
probably warped our brains, but it
I
is what it
mean,
is.
back in the day, we had Surge, which was even better than
That's
Mountain
right.
Dew.
The real Surge, 140 milligrams of caffeine, brother.
Is that what it had in it?
I don't know. It was
I would say,
ridiculous.
oh my god, if that's the case.
It probably had every bit of like 60 grams of sugar in every soda, probably.
Oh, easily.
It was so good though.
I mean, it was sweet even compared to Mountain Dew. So I mean, it has to be a lot.
Oh yeah, I got bored the other day, and they came out with it a lot. It was, I say the other day, I mean like 3 years ago. They re-released it, and it didn't taste the same. I was looking it up, and they actually changed the chemical formula of the Surge, and it's different than what they did when they released it. It's like half the amount of sugar, and it's got like no caffeine in it, almost. It's like got a little bit of caffeine and not comparatively like what
Well,
it
see, because
was.
I bought a 6-pack when they re-released Surge, because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I've got to like experience this thing from my childhood, and I
Have
thought
that
it didn't taste the
dopamine dump.
same.
Get that dopamine dump.
Well, and I thought it didn't taste the same either, and I just assumed that my taste had changed over the
Nope.
years, but no, it wasn't the same.
Nope. They physically changed the chemical composition of it because
Why
it's not
would they release something for a novelty kick and then change it?
James, that's what they've been doing for the
It doesn't
last
make
10
any
years.
sense.
That's what they did they've been doing that with, the Marvel movies. They did it with the DC stuff. They're trying to get nostalgia, James. They're like, oh, the boomers are getting nostalgic. Go on. Don't you want something from your childhood? And now they're starting to do it to us because we're like, technically, I guess you could call us what are we technically boomers, I
I think
guess.
we're technically millennials.
Technically, oh yeah, we are millennials because it started in like 1985.
We're the early end of the millennial wave, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're at the early beginning of
Yeah, I
this
say
because
we're the beginning end of millennials, yeah.
yeah. So I hate to say it, but freaking millennials, but that's what we are. So we're kind of starting to age into that midlife, a little bit, and so they're starting to like put out this stuff. They're like, look at your childhood. Do you want an SNES compact? It has all your favorite games on. Oh wait, not all your favorite games, just the ones we can license to you for $70.
Like, man, no.
Like, I'll take.
But seriously, and like the Switch is getting ready to come out with Skyward Sword HD, and I'm like, ooh, I should buy that.
You're just sitting there and you got a little tent on your pants and you're just like, this is gonna be great. And Kelly's like, no, you don't need it. You don't need it. But like, but I want it.
I need it.
You
Well,
sound like,
just like all the movies we watched are getting remade. It's amazing how much they're shilling nostalgia.
oh, absolutely, man. Like if they were gonna remake something, I was talking to Jackie a while back. If they want to remake something, I would be down for them to do another Atlantis movie. Like the one that Disney kicked out a little while ago. And that was actually, fun fact, Mike Mignola did all the storyboard art for that. I would give my left kidney for some storyboard art from Mike Mignola from that, because that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I have to do with Jackie sometime because she loves that too. So yeah, but anyways, if
It's a very quotable movie
yeah,
for sure.
hit me up if you get storyboard. I'll give you my kidney if you want it. So
Well, I mean, I'm sure I could find some people who would do that for you.
some seedy black guys. They're next to the guy that's trying to sell you sundials. That's another Disney quote, anyways. So, but yeah, this game brings back all that kind of that next nostalgia for these guys that it's kind of like all these other games do for us, right? And they really talk about how they spend hours and hours, watching old VHS tapes and all with these cartoons on there that they've been re-released, and I even kind of, whenever I first started playing this game, talking about that a little bit, that I looked up a little bit, their influences then, and that's where I got hooked on the Fleischer cartoons. Actually, I watched these back whenever, like 2015, I believe this is when this game was released. I watched the old Superman Fleischer cartoons, and I'm looking at it, even though I may not like agree with some of the content in it, just taking it into the animation, the sheer, creativity that that is put into these animations and these cartoons, it's astounding. You can see so much where so many like, you know, people get their inspirations from, and where they get some of their, you know, inspiration for these games and other more modern cartoons. You know,
Mm-hmm.
these are building blocks. This is where it all starts, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of idea that you get these kind of things, but they also look at things like Japanese propaganda animated films, which is kind of where they got the idea for Cuphead. Actually, that's one of the cool things. They look at
Really?
all
It
the,
came from Japanese propaganda?
yeah, 1936 Japanese propaganda animated film featuring a character with a teacup for a head.
Oh
And they
my.
were, yeah, isn't that, it's pretty, that's
I
so
was not aware that Japanese propaganda was involved in this at all.
that's right. And sometimes Japanese propaganda is the best kind of propaganda. So that's why I'm just saying, you know, just if you
Well,
need love, if you need companionship, go to a love motel. So there you
I
go.
mean, that's one thing I find entertaining about like Japanese propaganda is that it's a very culturally and ethnically uniform country. And
Yep.
so all the trouble they make is their own trouble. And so their propaganda is really humorous by our standards.
Do you imbibe quite a significant amount of Japanese propaganda, James? Do you do that on a daily basis?
Eh, no, but I do have a YouTube channel called Ken Lauderdale that I do watch on occasion. And he reviews and looks at some of these really old animes. Like there's one
Oh,
of interest. Have you seen like he has a YouTube video called The Curse of Minky Momo? It's
I've
probably the
heard of
most
it.
cursed. It's probably the most cursed anime to ever exist. Like multiple times when they've aired the anime, natural disasters have
Oh
occurred.
my god, that's that's awful. That's really funny though. They're like we shall not. We should. It's the anime that should not be named. So if we speak its name, a tsunami will come, or Godzilla shall rise his head from the waters.
Or Japan's first superhero, Golden Bat.
I 1 second. I'm gonna look this up now because you're making me making me
They've actually tried to revive the franchise several times, and it just hasn't caught on.
Golden Bat.
Golden Bat.
I'm going to see
It's
what
a
this is.
man in a red bodysuit with a black cloak and a golden skull for a head.
What in the hell am I watching? This is, and
And
he's
don't worry, it came in a live action version too.
that's amazing. This is great. I want to watch this. Oh, and there is a 1966 movie. What is this?
Mhm.
This is awful. I just want to see him. Where's he at? Oh my god, he looks like a knockoff Red Skull, but in black and white. This is great. Okay, I'm gonna watch this later. That's phenomenal. I want to thank you for giving me that, James. Jackie's gonna look at me like I'm weird now. So yeah, if you guys want to watch something really bizarre, and it's kind of like watching, like you said, it's very much going off on a tangent in Japanese culture here. It's kind of like watching the Spider-Man version, Japanese Spider-Man version. It was just its own thing. It almost had nothing to do with the actual Spider-Man, other than he wore the Spider-Man costume.
Mhm.
Their whole thing was, it was great. I know, yeah, you put it in the that's great. I found the history of it. It was phenomenal. I want to watch
But
Golden Bat.
yeah, it's interesting.
I love Japanase culture. It's so bizarre, but yeah, like you said, you get that homogenous kind of feeling about it, and it's so much more interesting when you go there and you see it from as an outsider. But you look at our country, and we're just like this giant melting pot of like so many different cultures. It would be bizarre to try to live there, I think, a little bit,
I wouldn't
because
know what to do with myself. It would be
oh
very
yeah,
strange.
you'd have to have a very specific kind of mindset, and you have to be able to follow rules very rigorously, in my opinion. That's
Well,
kind of how
you'd
I
be the
feel about it.
perpetual outsider too, because Japan is still like 95%
Oh,
Japanese,
absolutely. Yeah.
and the
It's,
ones who aren't Japanese are generally just in the big cities, and they're just there for business.
yeah.
Like
It's
it's a very insular society when it comes right down to it.
very much so. That's what happens when you're an island nation. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think kind of let's go a little bit more into the development of this, but before we, go off the rails again about Japanese culture. So the Moldenhauers, they actually thought about making this game after they saw the success of one of our favorite games, James, Super Meat Boy.
Super Meat Boy was good.
It was phenomenal, which that came out in 2010.
by the
So
eponymous Team Meat,
that's right.
which is one of the best names for a video game studio I've ever heard.
It's just, hey, we're Team Meat, brah. There we go. That's what we're all about. So yeah, they decided they were going to get
Same guys who
together.
did the Binding of Isaac, yeah.
Yeah, same guys, same group of guys that did Binding of Isaac, and they decided they were gonna, take this head on. They're like, hey, this is once in a lifetime kind of thing, So they took the things they loved and they put them into action, essentially. Putting together an animation team or an animation, kind of a short animated, clip, things like that, and they pitched it to some other animators, and they all kind of got together and they were able to start working on it. So
It's interesting to me that Super Meat Boy was the inspiration, because Super Meat Boy is like nothing like this game at
oh,
all.
no, not at all. Yeah, absolutely not at all. But
I guess it
it
was just the success of an indie studio was
oh,
what
yeah, well,
inspired
because
them.
if you think about it, about this time, it was like what 2005, 2006 is when kind of the indie scene really started to kind of take off finally. But they weren't ever like huge commercial successes. They were like they would get critically successful. Like critics would be like, they would praise them and say, "Oh, this is a great game," or "You should try this game because it's X, Y, or Z good,"
Mm-hmm.
But it would never, like, they would never sell a ton of game or a ton of units. They wouldn't sell in the millions of copies. You'd maybe get lucky if you get 500,000 units or maybe 250,000 units, and you'd call that a commercial success for an indie game, essentially.
Well, I think it's not a coincidence that this is also when Steam was becoming a big thing, because I think
Very
that's what
much.
the indie games needed, was a distribution platform.
That wasn't one of the big three.
Yeah. Well,
Wasn't
because before that, I mean, you could make indie games, but then you still had to sell it to Microsoft or EA or someone to put it on a console for you. You couldn't just self-publish.
which that's kind of where they get. That's kind of where I kind of feel like there was a bit of an issue with Cuphead, is that they actually chose to go with Microsoft to try to distribute the game initially, and
Mm-hmm.
I get they wanted to that's what they were hoping to do. That actually, that's where they released it first on Microsoft Windows and Xbox One, and it was fun. I was proud that they decided to go with that way, because they know that the PC and Xbox community was going to be where it's at, because it was primarily a North American studio, and
Mm-hmm.
they went that way, and I think they probably talked to Sony. And just from what I've you hear through the grapevine, and all the anecdotal evidence, that Sony doesn't really play well with indie studios as much, or
That's
as
what I've
well.
heard. Like, for the small studios, it sounds like you have to really bend over backwards for them.
Yeah, and they usually kind of take more than what they really should. Like, even if it just boggles my mind why big studio or big companies wouldn't want to work with some of these smaller studios, because there's always a chance that hey, if you make a deal with these people and say, hey, we're going to put it on our platform and we'll take 10% of the revenue, even
Well,
that.
so actually, 20 or 30% is more standard. That's like Steam, I think, is 20%, and I
Yeah,
think
that's what I'm
Xbox and
saying.
PlayStation's like
That's
30%.
why I'm not a businessman, James, because I underestimate these things all the time. So, and I must say, even if they do something like that, they get a indie darling hit on their hands, such as like Super Meat Boy, or
It's free money for them. I
it's
mean,
free
they
money,
already.
because it doesn't take anything for them to, they're already making the game on PCs, especially at the Microsoft. It doesn't take anything for them to transfer it over and put it on their platform.
Yeah, they're
At the
just
very.
supplying the infrastructure, which is an expense. I mean, they do deserve to make some money for what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing. But I mean, they're a distribution platform. Games are what they need to run too.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and and I think that's kind of why they chose to go with Microsoft, like you said, because they probably got the best deal from them, and luckily it ended up working out great for them, because they actually at the they released, or they didn't release it, they showed it off at the 2014 Electronic Entertainment Expo, and they were like, hey, it's going to be done here, and probably in the next couple of years, probably, because they explained everything kind of what we've already explained, is that it was all hand drawn, so it's going to take a while. And they
mhm.
finally released it on September 29th, 2017 for the Xbox One and Microsoft Windows. And eventually it finally came to, I believe it was Mac, in 2018, and then in Nintendo Switch, it was released in 2019, April 18th of 2019.
Mhm.
And I think they did finally release it for the PlayStation Network, which is in July 20th, 2020. Which that's
The very
amazing,
last thing, yeah.
dude. I'm telling you, that's why I say, I love Sony. I love the Sony exclusives, but I think they're just not a. They're a lot more of a. They're not an aggressive. They're too much of a bull hog on our indie companies, and it just, if you don't want to play in their ecosystem and you don't want to play by their rules, they don't want to play with you, and that's kind of just makes me sad. And they're
Well, I
kind of
feel like they're kind of doing what Nintendo used to do, where they're trying to cater to like a boutique set of
yeah,
developers who make only games for them.
that makes me sad, is because that's not how the world's going to be going forward. Because like, you're going to get all these, like, Microsoft is betting big. I know we're kind of going outside of Cuphead here, but Microsoft is betting big on their subscription service and
Mhm.
games being, free on their platform, or at least, on their platforms day one for people that are playing on their subscription service, such as, like, the games are coming out with was it Starfield and things like that.
Yeah.
That they're going to be coming out here, and Sony is so far behind, man. They're still hoping that people are going to want to be paying $60 for a game that you're going to, sure, you might get the hard, the hard copy for it, or get a download for it. But at the same time, are you even going to be able to get a PlayStation 5? Or,
Well, and
are you going to be able, or would you rather pay $15 and play Halo Infinity or Halo Infinite, which is going to be released day one for free on the Game Pass if you want to play it for $15?
well, and I think it's just how the face of the the video game industry is changing. It's less about selling individual games than it used to be, at least for the big corporations. It's more about keeping you locked inside their ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's like for stuff like the Game Pass, they're still planning on selling these games to people. The same
Oh,
people who are going to buy the game will still end up buying the game because they want to
absolutely.
own it, they want to play it forever, they want a hard copy for whatever reason. And so stuff like the Game Pass is just meant to keep people in the Microsoft system so that eventually you'll buy more stuff. Well, for example, like if you look at the Game Pass, the game comes out on the Game Pass, but then none of the DLC does. You have to buy the DLC. Or like Outer Worlds, for example, that you're playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the Game Pass, but all the DLC is not.
Yeah,
So
which kind of makes me a little ticked, but it's
so
okay.
they've got a what, a 5 or 6 year old game now. It's a great game, by the way, but not exactly my cup of tea, but it's a great game.
It is what it is.
But you can always, but if you want to play the DLC, you have to pay, and you may not have ever touched that game without the Game Pass. So it's interesting how it's more about capturing market share for some of these things than it is about squeezing maximum
It's
value
kind of
from each
like
individual thing.
it's kind of like going to the drug dealer and he's giving you your first bump for free, essentially.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's and it's not a bad plan. I get it.
Because they're thinking like little Billy out there, he's got $70 to spend on cocaine. So I'm gonna get him to spend $60 on his favorite brand of cocaine and then $10 for a cocaine subscription.
I prefer the Peruvian marching powder, James.
Whatever, sure. I mean,
the Peruvian dancing, or the Colombian dancing powder. What's
is that what they used to call it?
They called it so many different things, man. It was bizarre. Actually, fun fact: when we went down to Peru, they actually would give you coca leaves. Did I ever tell you this? And they would
No.
they're like, chew it, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm told in its natural form in the leaf, it's apparently not nearly. It's more like a cup of caffeine is what people say.
That's actually what it was. I actually
It'll still make you probably turn positive on a piss test. So
probably that's
probably
why
not worth it.
That's why they would actually give you these candies that had coca leaf extract in them, and so I was like, for free everywhere, and I'm like, gee, this is just a legal form of like cocaine. That's phenomenal. I was like, this is bizarre. But yeah, so let's talk about the reception. Actually, before we get into the reception of the game, I want to do one thing. Do you know what the most auspicious port that's ever been made for Cuphead, James?
The most auspicious port?
Yeah, the most important one that you obviously have forgotten.
Did they port it back to Super NES or something?
No, it was whenever in 2019, whenever they decided they were going to adapt this port for Tesla Inc.'s Linux-based system so that you could play it on your Tesla car while you drove.
Oh my, that's a problem. Did
So
they sell
now,
a Tesla gamepad to go with the Tesla car, or
well, what they'll do is
is
have
it
you ever?
touchscreen?
Yeah, they said they have these huge touch screens in their cars. So the only reason I know this is because I've been to the Tesla dealership in St. Louis, and because I really want a Tesla at some point in my lifetime. Because it's just me, you know. I
Checking out a
like
Tesla, huh?
I was, you know, but I don't have 60 grand to blow right now, so that's me. So, I was looking at it, and it's literally just a humongous screen. It's literally almost as big as say this computer monitor in front of you. So you're thinking like maybe 24
Yeah, it's a big,
24
big screen.
across. So it's a big screen, but it's vertical. So you could play essentially, and you could rotate it however you want to. So you could essentially
Mm-hmm.
play on there if you wanted to. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. So,
I'm just thinking, well, if Linux will run on there,
oh yeah,
then I could get one of those Linux Pi kernels to run, and I could run an emulator. But yeah, anyway.
James, you're thinking right up my alley, man. So I did a lot of research into this whenever I was first getting into the Tesla, wanting to get a Tesla. My wife was like, no. Jackie was like, you are not going to buy a Tesla. This is not going to be your personal, gaming system to drive around in, so you can just do autopilot and play games. I'm like, who is this?
It's like
what?
Jackie, you're gonna drive while I play games.
That's exactly right. So, and the other things you can do on this is you can actually go into the system. Talking about the Linux system, you can actually, I've seen people do this. You can go in and change the horn, and you can actually make it like a song. It's
Oh,
great.
no.
It's so bad. It's great.
Oh no.
There's one I saw is they push the horn and it changes it plays my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
Oh no.
It was great. I was like, this is phenomenal. But anyways, talking about things that receive, an amazing reception, much like
Anyway,
Tesla.
Cuphead's reception was awesome. I think in the first 2 weeks
Oh, yeah.
they sold more than 1 million copies.
Ridiculous amount of copies.
By July 2019, they'd sold 4 million. And by its second year out, they'd sold more than 5 million copies. 6 million by the time it got to PlayStation in 2020. So just a obscene number of sales for such a small studio.
And the first year that it was out, it won several awards. Obviously, it won in the Golden Joystick Awards. It won Best Visual Design. It won the Xbox Game of the Year. At the Game Awards, it won Best Art Direction, Independent Game, Best Debut Indie Game, Score, Music, and Action Game. It was actually, sorry, I take it back. It was nominated on the Score and Music and Action Game, but I'm like, as you go down, if you go on the list I saw, it's won and it's been nominated at least every year. In the first 2 years that it's out, it was just nominated and won a ton of different, things. And it's luckily it has just garnered this huge following, and it's even been so much so that it's actually even gone on to inspire some other newer games, which it actually inspired Bendy and the Ink Machine. I don't know if you ever saw that one, James.
I have not seen that one.
I have that in my game or in my Steam library. I actually started playing it a while ago. I got distracted. It's creepy. It's creepy, but I love it.
Okay.
So I will let you try to play it at some point. But on top of that, Cuphead has been introduced into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a downloadable character. Cuphead Mii Fighter. It also they're also going to have several other. Like I said, they're going to have additional DLC put in for it. They've had a bunch of DLCs, a bunch of little bitty games such as Super Smash Bros. You could get Arby's added limited edition toys and paper crafts based on the characters. And they're actually developing an animated Netflix series called The Cuphead Show.
What? Is this for kids or adults?
I do not know. I'm going to guess it's probably mostly going to be for adults, but that's just me.
Just given the tone of the thing.
It says for an adult audience appreciation.
Oh my.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Talking about while the series will be targeted for children, Studio MDHR also anticipated that they will include humor and gags for adult audience and appreciation. So it's going to be like a Shrek type thing. So they're going to be like, wonder what he's compensating for something, eh? Kind of that BS.
If you know what I mean. If you know what I mean.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Or it says, "There's a what was it? What is it? Farquaad says." Says, many of you will die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Exactly.
That is. Hopefully, it's going to be around that thing. So, James, out of 10, what would you give Cuphead?
Out of 10,
Out of how many cups? How many cups would you give it, James?
For me, yeah, I'm just thinking. For me, it was like a 6 or a 7. I mean, it was fun. It was just a very punishingly difficult, and the constant boss fights kind of wore on me.
I can see that.
That doesn't mean that it's not an awesome game. It just wasn't an awesome game for me.
Wasn't an awesome game for you. It didn't have the survival elements that you crave so much.
Or the exploration.
The exploration. I would give it I give it about a 7.5, 7.75 maybe even. It's inching towards that 8 mark, but I liked it a little bit more than you because I like those fast reactionary time type games. I love that kind of stuff. That's just me though. But you know how I am. I'm an adrenaline junkie at heart, so and doing that kind of real quick motion was just right up my alley. So much stimulus, James. So much stimulus.
Which, if we ever get around to talking about Bowser's Fury, that's exactly what that game was.
Yes, so
Bowser's Fury is like Nintendo crack. It's.
I swear to God, if they make, we'll talk about that in that episode. But if they make a whole game like that, I will totally pay $60 for that. That was a fun experience. So,
definitely.
Maybe some foreshadowing, folks out there in podcast land. Perhaps maybe that will be coming the next couple episodes, hopefully. So, but anyways, James, I just want to say thanks for coming by and sitting with me and waxing. I wouldn't say philosophical, waxing poetic about lost souls and how to get them back, and the finer animation in life from the 1930s about the racist propaganda that they sometimes hold. So,
of course, yes,
absolutely. So your Japanese propaganda expertise is always well appreciated.
Never have men spent so long lovingly drawing something so foul.
Absolutely. So again, James, thanks for showing up and helping me out, guys. I want to say thanks for coming in and listening to the episode today. The episode. If I could speak, that'd be phenomenal, right? Yeah, don't roll your eyes at me. I'll come through that screen. Don't make me. Anyways, thanks guys for listening to the episode today. Reminder, check out any of our past episodes. We got
I believe it's pronounced episode.
I'm done with you already. We have a ton of backlog if you guys want to listen to other ones. We recently did one on the Age of Empires 2, and at the time of this recording, I believe Jackie and I just did one on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the book, and kind of we compared it a little bit to the movie as well. So if you like that kind of stuff, guys, let us know. If these things are dumb and you don't like what we're doing here, let us know. We'd like to know what we can do to accommodate you guys if we're not hitting the types of things that you're enjoying. And if nobody says anything, we're just going to keep rolling on, and this train is going to go into the garbage dump where it might possibly belong. So, but either way, we're going to keep driving. So anyways, James.
Can't stop, won't stop.
And can't stop, won't stop. Got to make the booty drop. Anyways.
That's right.
So James, thanks for coming on today. And we will get out of here, James. All right. Talk to you later, man.
All right. Yep.
All right, bye. If you're interested in keeping up to date with new episodes on our channel, add us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seriously Pointless Conversations. If you have questions or concerns, please email us at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback. Thank you for listening to our show.